What is going on, guys? It's Nick from Surfcasting the Island, and today we're going to be talking about the moon, and in particular, why the moon could be your best friend as a surfcaster. I know it's been quite some time since I made my last YouTube video regarding September is in the air, which was my first full report about 2 months ago now to the day. And the reason why I kind of cut back on doing the weekly reports is it was, rather tedious to keep up with, the daily bites and where the bite was happening and then reporting at the end of the week. So going forward, I decided I'm going to, I should say, do a season reflection at the end of every season. So I'll do a season reflection on the fall coming up, and then so on and so forth. So the spring of 22, I'll have a spring reflection. So to start off now, the basis of the conversation I said is the moon. Up until now, up until the recent couple of months actually, I started to realize patterns and whatnot with the moon. But growing up, I didn't really pay attention to wind, moon, and tide and how that could really affect the bite. I would just look up into the sky, see the stars, and that rock in the sky, and just say, oh, well, seems like a nice night to fish or whatever. Not a lot of wind, so on and so forth. Doesn't really matter. But I didn't really put much thought into it in terms of, will this actually, cause a good bite? Do I have good conditions for a bite to happen? Whether it be the spring, the fall, or whenever I'm targeting striped bass. So shortly I'm going to get into why is it important to look for what I'm about to tell you. So the three main reasons I've found why the moon is important and it could be your best friend as a surf caster is that you got to take into consideration cloud cover, how it affects the moon, the color lure in terms of the moon phase and how that's going to affect what color plug you're going to throw, and last but not least, the tide and how that affects the movement of water. So why is knowing cloud cover important when targeting fish mainly at night? If you have a rather cloudy night and a bright moon, that's going to affect your bite negatively. You see, people think, nighttime dark all the time. No, if you have a brighter moon, it's going to be a brighter night. Similar to how the sun gives off light, the moon gives off light as well, just in a different way. The fish still recognize that. So the brighter the night, you want to, present that lure accordingly to how you think you're going to catch fish. They won't see it as well if it's cloudy and a bright night because they're adjusted to seeing those, a brighter presentation. And that's going to bleed into my next point. So if you have a bright moon, a clear night, you're probably going to have a decent bite. You're going to find a couple fish. And it's no coincidence because I've been out there and I have plenty of stories to tell you where every time the moon came out for, an extended period of time, say 10, 15 minutes, boom, hit a fish, my friend, boom, in my lineup, he would hit a fish. Then the moon goes away, your bite's done. And I always thought, like I said, I thought that was a coincidence, but when I started to put the pieces together and fish more and more and start fishing at night more, pretty much because of my schedule, it kind of forced me to fish more at night because I work all during the day. So the second point, the moon phase will determine what color you're going to present, color plug you're going to present to the striped bass. So like I said, the brighter the night, the brighter the color, the darker the night, the darker the color. People would think that would be vice versa. You would think if it was a darker night, you would want to present a brighter color plug to these fish. But again, it goes back to the fact of saying, and how I've mentioned, that these fish are drawn and adjusted to that light. So if it's been, say a new moon, for example, let's say it's an October, November new moon, you're fishing, it's the fall run. That's, that's the basis of where we are at the season. They're going to be adjusted to those darker colors. If you're throwing a needlefish, a darter, you're going to want to throw your blacks, purples, blues, reds, anything that gives off a very low light frequency. Okay, if you're fishing around, let's say, the November or October full moon, closer to those moons, you're going to want to throw your yellows, your whites, anything that gives off a higher frequency and higher reflection, because those fish are conditioned to seeing, brighter presentations coming up on that brighter moon. Okay, very, very important. The last point I will mention is tide. As a general rule of thumb, because there are always exceptions. I say a general rule of thumb because it doesn't always happen this way, but typically speaking, the most fish, and the body of fish, I should say, and the size of the fish are going to be most plentiful around those moons. Typically, I'd say a 2 to 3 day spread between the moons. So 2 days before, 2 to 3 days before, to 2 to 3 days after the moon will bring in, hypothetically, theoretically speaking, a new body of fish. And that'll also bring in the size of fish. So if your only time to fish is around that moon or whenever you're available, you got to fish your ass off, because this is the time you're going to catch and connect with those bigger fish, which is also dependent on the wind direction, the tide, and the time of year. So contingent upon the migration, if you can find a spot where you know a certain wind and you know a certain tide is going to produce, and you know those fish are going to be there, whether coming from the Hudson and the Chesapeake or down from Rhode Island and up north, your chances of connecting to a bigger fish are going to be much higher. And like I said, like many other guys, Alberto Nee and Bill Wetzel and all these other top tier surf casters have said, it's always about that water movement. A lot of people don't understand it's that magical window, 20, 30 minutes, if that, where you have a shot at those bigger fish. But until you understand how that water moves and how it affects a certain area you're fishing, you're not going to be as effective, and you're not going to connect on as many fish as you can or should. So the point I'm stressing to you is know your moon phases, whether you're fishing a new moon, full moon, going towards the full moon during a waxing crescent, a waxing gibbous, or towards a new moon, waning gibbous, waning crescent. Knowing all these factors and putting them into play, combining that with the bait that's around, will all determine what color lure, what profile lure you're going to fish, and what area you're going to fish. So going forward into the whatever's left of this season, going into the spring, I hope you guys can kind of absorb what I've experienced and what I'm trying to tell you guys, so that you're prepared to target more fish and bigger size fish in the future. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment, subscribe, share it, do what you want. Follow me on my IG. My public account is @surfcasting_the_island. Thank you. Have a nice day.